Time now for Media Watch, and Emma James joins me here in the studio for a further look at the reactions to Dominique Strauss-Kahn's acquittal. Tell me what you found, Emma.
Well, this is the kind of thing that cartoonists, comedians find an absolute dream, because the story, of course, is that the former IMF chief, presidential hopeful, perhaps even shoo-in here in France not so long ago, accused of procuring prostitutes for sex parties that he admitted going to, but he's now been cleared because the court ruled that there was no evidence that he knew these women were prostitutes. Now, a lot of the cartoons that I'm seeing online, I can't show you. This is about as risque as I think I can get.
I imagine it's manna for heaven for some people.
Absolutely. Hervé Baudry has produced this cartoon, DSK relaxé, which means acquitted. And he says, you know, it's party time, basically, with a strategically placed party horn or party whistle, whatever you call them. So that's the kind of thing we're seeing. A lot of others going a little further.
A bit of smutty humour.
A lot of smutty humour. Also here we've got tonight at the Carlton Hotel a mega sex party to celebrate his acquittal, according to this Twitter user. And this image is actually an old one, but it's being reused a lot today. This Twitter user says, it puts the image alongside the phrase that supposedly the first thing he said after he was acquitted is that, prepare yourselves, I'm going to be going out soon. And if we take a look at the rest of the photograph, you can see why it is that people are choosing to tweet that left, right and centre. It's really rather unfortunate and really goes to show how this man, who was such a titan in many ways, has now become the punchline to just many jokes, including this one from Jeffrey Kane. DSK now available for FIFA, Twitter, whatever. Another Twitter user, though, says that he thinks the acquittal is down to this campaign, the Je suis DSK, obviously a bit of a take on Je suis Charlie. Let's take a look at the spoof video in support of Dominique Strauss-Kahn.
I had to do something to show my solidarity, to make my case for how we should live in a free society and be allowed to do what we want, express ourselves, even if it offends people. We have the right to be offensive. Up in a criminal court, be torn apart like a fat, randy butterfly on a wheel.
So there you go, that's the payoff line there. Fat randy butterfly is how he referred to DSK.
But that was the PG version, as you said. Now, but joking aside, there have also been some rather disturbing revelations that have emerged from this trial.
Absolutely, not least of which Dominique Strauss-Kahn's attitude towards women and to the charges that he faced. And this Twitter user has retweeted a part of an article that was actually published during the trial itself, which happened back in February, although it's the judgment today. She says, a jaw-dropping insight into DSK's arrogance and sense of entitlement. If it weren't so awful, it would be funny. Now, in this article, he says he denies that he had an uncontrolled obsession with sex parties. He said he only went to 12 in 3 years, so that's 4 every year. And then he says, I had other things to do. So it really shows how he didn't think that there was anything wrong in what he was doing, although most people would consider these kind of libertine sex parties that he was frequenting as being something, beyond the norm. Elsewhere, people are reporting that the trial hinged on these parties that took place in the midst of the global financial crisis, events Strauss-Kahn described as much-needed recreational sessions. So it shows, the other thing is that during the trial, they revealed some of his text messages in which he refers to women as material and equipment for these parties. And although he's not been found guilty of procuring prostitutes, certainly his attitude towards women has really changed how people are looking at him. The Independent here talks about, could he make a political comeback? And they think it's highly unlikely. They say that his reputation has been sullied by his own admission to a taste for rough and libertine sex. This tweet is something that lots of people are talking about. The only thing that we know he said after his acquittal is, all this fuss for nothing, what destruction?
So, you're talking there about a comeback as such, and given that 51% of the population in this country, I don't think, are too impressed with his views on women, what are people saying about that? Is there a chance?
I think if it could possibly happen, the only country where it could happen would be here in France, because there is a very different relationship between politicians and the press and their sexual, their private lives. And it's very unusual for it to be reported on. And it's something that has started to happen in recent years.
It is changing, isn't it?
It is changing. And this has certainly helped to fuel that change. And this Twitter user says, France, what happens in the bedroom stays in the bedroom. In the UK, what happens in the bedroom goes to the press room or the newsroom. In the US, it goes to a courtroom. And I think that really historically is very much what the situation has been here in France. But that is starting to change. However, you look at these figures from at the start of the trial, and just before all of these revelations came out, they knew what he was going on trial for. 79% of people believed that DSK would make a better president than François Hollande. Now, a survey that was done today, 70% of people were satisfied with his acquittal. So it's quite interesting. It shows, I think, that there's room for manoeuvre when it comes to morals and Frenchness.
And it also shows the difference between the way in which French people view such issues versus the way the rest of the world.
Absolutely. And you don't have to go too far to actually find supporters of Dominique Strauss-Kahn commenting online. This Twitter user saying, it's a shame, he would have made an excellent president. How to ruin a talented economist in 3 years. This gentleman says, DSK forever being acquitted. Hollande, the president by default. Sad period for the history of France. But when you take a look at other articles out there, and we go back to last month, the attitude towards women, people talked a lot about, could the DSK case really change the way that we view women here in France and the level of sexism that you find in the workplace?
Absolutely.
Now, in May, just a month ago, 40 female journalists wrote an open letter talking about the fact that they still are sexually harassed by politicians and French officials every day. So clearly, nothing's changed that much yet.
Yes, thank you very much. That's Emma James with the Media Watch.